everybody! This week I will be talking about how I study Korean. As you're watching this, I am getting ready to go to Korea for a study abroad program that's going to last a year. Wow. In order to survive there, I'm planning on speaking in Korean a little bit, or at least reading. I would like to get better while I'm there. I'm not sure if it's going to happen, but I'm going to try. In order to do that, though, I need a basis. I've been teaching myself Korean for about 4 years now, but the progress that I've made is minimal because it's not something I've fully dedicated myself to until the past few years or so. Since 2020, I've fully dedicated myself. So, how I study Korean. I have it in a little list in my journal because I'm that person. So number one is an equal focus on both grammar and vocabulary. You can't build an understanding of a language if you don't have both of these. And a lot of apps focus mostly on vocabulary and don't really delve into grammar, whereas a lot of books delve into grammar without going over vocabulary. So finding an equal balance of both, if that means having to use different materials, then so be it. But I feel like that kind of overall experience is really important in order to fully understand a language that you're trying to teach yourself, that you're trying to learn. My second tip is to read, write, listen, and speak in the language, in your goal language. I don't mean immersion necessarily. That is a good step, but that's only a good step after you've gone past the basics. If you don't understand anything that's going on around you, immersion is just going to be confusing. So read in your language. My personal language is Korean. That's the language I'm talking about now. When you're reading in Korean, I highly recommend not using romanization, but using the actual Hangul letter system. There's a bunch of resources out there for you to learn Hangul so that you can study with that source, with the original alphabet system, because that's the only way you're going to learn Korean well. I would recommend that for Hanja or Chinese characters as well. Try to learn the characters as well as the pinyin, and with Japanese, anything that doesn't have a romantic alphabet, if there's a romanization out there, I would highly recommend using the romanization as a secondary source and try to use the characters as much as possible. Writing in the language is really important because then you learn how to form words and sentences. So I personally try to write in my journal at least 2 sentences every day that are entirely in Korean. It forces you to look up words that you don't already know. It forces you to figure out how to create sentences. It doesn't matter if you're right or not. It's just putting your mind into that mindset, getting it done. Listening to the language. You're not going to understand how to make the sounds in your own mouth, how to comprehend the sounds when they're spoken to you if you don't listen. My personal way of listening is through music and dramas. It doesn't have to be educational, you just have to get used to the sounds that are being formed so that when you go to speak, the number 4, you can actually replicate those sounds. Speaking is just as important as writing. It allows you to create sentences off of the top of your head and forces you to look up things that you don't already know. I try to speak a little bit of Korean every day. Sometimes I don't do that. It's a whole lot harder to keep track of that because it's not being written down. The journal works because I can see all of the dates. The speaking is going a little bit less so. I do highly recommend the speaking. It's really important if you want to hold a conversation in your target language. And my third tip, or the third way that I study Korean, is through online resources. I have 3, I like the number 3, online resources that I really use frequently that I really recommend. The first one is Talk to Me in Korean. Now, talktomeinkorean.com is a website that allows you free access to PDFs and audio files and a bunch of different lessons. They also have a YouTube channel where you can learn Korean. They also have a textbook series. Like, all of these books are from Talk to Me in Korean. And they're really helpful. They really are. But they're not necessary. Like, it's not necessary on Talk to Me in Korean for you to spend money. You can also access a whole bunch of free resources, and I highly recommend for Korean, unless you're gonna get really into it, to stick to those free resources. Because otherwise that's a lot of money that you're spending, and you might not have that, especially if you're not going to stick to the language for very long. I tend to language hop. That's my issue. But the Talk to Me in Korean online website is a great resource, and if you feel like branching out more, the Talk to Me in Korean books are also fantastic. The second online resource that I use is Memrise. Again, it's an online app. You can also have it as a mobile app. It's great. You can use it for free, you'll get ads, or you can pay for it if you want to. But the key thing is, all of the necessary uses for acquiring the language are free. Memrise is essentially a flashcard app, kind of, vaguely. It has timed study, so you study every day and it brings back words after a time period of time for optimal memorization. It does it for you so you don't have to think about it. They have courses classes in Korean that are good. They cover both vocabulary and grammar, which I think is important. Like I said, they have real people talking. They have the Hangul and not just romanization. When you're learning the alphabet, they do have some romanization just so that you have a comparison, but it doesn't depend on that. And there are skits, so you can listen, you can read. I mean, you have to write occasionally. You can type it in. It's not really like writing, but you are forming those words, so I consider it writing. You're listening, and on some occasions you are speaking, like when you are repeating out loud. Now, they don't judge on that, like that's not a thing that they can test, but you can do it yourself. So I think it covers all of the things that are necessary for language learning in an app that's free. A great thing is you can also create your own flashcards. I find this really important. So I can take the Memrise course if I want to, or I can go to Talk to Me in Korean and get their vocabulary and grammar and put that into the course and learn that as well alongside the studying that I'm doing online. It blends really well. And the third and final thing that I use for studying Korean is media. Instagram posts. Someone's posted their caption in Korean. There's a C translation button, but I try to read it first, guess what it means, then press the translation button. I'm having a good time, and I'm seeing how well I've done. Dramas. On Viki, there's an option for seeing both the Korean and the English at the same time. Now, sometimes it's glitchy, and what are you going to do about that? But seeing the Korean on the screen as you're listening to it is really helpful. Also, just listening to dramas. If you just take a scene in a drama and just break it down bit by bit and just see if you can translate it, that's fantastic. And you're having fun. K-pop. If you enjoy K-pop, I do find myself partial to some K-pop. Take a song, any song, a song that you enjoy. Listen to it. Try to understand what they're saying. Write it out. Translate it directly. The next time you listen to it, see if you can understand more of what they're saying as they're saying it. If it's a rap and you want to be that cool person, learn the rap. Rap at the same pace that your favorite rapper is going. I'm sorry if your rapper is in Stray Kids or is August D. I do apologize for this advice. You're gonna hurt. But it'll get you used to speaking in Korean and speaking in Korean quickly. I think that's very important. So that's how I study Korean, by myself. Now, if you have the opportunity to take classes, go ahead and do that if that's something you're able to do, because taking classes allows you to communicate with others, which is something that I've found in the past few years is really important. If there's anything else that you do to study Korean or any other language, let me know in the comments down below. Also, tell me what language you're studying. And if there's any other questions you have about my particular language learning journey, let me know. I'll see if I can answer them. And I will see you guys next time. Bye!